Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. And guess what? I'm back from vacation to talk about the series drops. These series drops are making 13 cards free, Series 4 cards that are going to Series 3. We're going to break all of this down, explain how desirable each card is, what decks they go in, and everything else so that you are as informed as possible and you are ready for the series drops. Things we've been told that are important to know and to note before we get into what cards have dropped. First, they're still working on the long term card acquisition solution. It has been well over a year at this time. I would expect it, I'm guessing, pure guess, around summer is my working assumption, summer to fall. Basically, we're looking at quarter two to into quarter three, is my general guess for when this happens, but they are working on it and supposedly progress is being made. This series drop will happen on 3/4, so that is the date of the next patch, which means that we will revisit these cards that day after this coming week's OTA. There is an OTA this Thursday. It could change the desirability of these cards. Expect two videos on 3/4, one that goes over the new season's cards that come out that day, and one that goes over the series drops. The new mode, the Sanctum Showdown, comes out on 2/25, and then it will run for 2 weeks. So it's coming out on Tuesday. It's going to run through 3/11. It's going to run through 3/4, then 3/11. There is a way to get unowned Series 4 and 5 cards in that mode. That means from 2/25 to 3/4, do not open unowned Series 4 and 5 cards. You might get a card that's dropping Series 3 that will then be free, and then you've wasted your time. Do not do that. Do not open during that mode until the patch happens. So for a week, you're going to be collecting resources before you try and open anything at the end of that first week. You should be reasonably, according to Glenn Jones, you should reasonably be able to expect that you're going to be able to get two or so of the four unowned Series 4 and 5 cards from that mode. So, and that's just by grinding, right? So if you want more, we either need to win a lot, and I'll have the best decks for you, I promise. We either need to win a lot or we need to save gold. I think it would be very wise if you could either buy or save some gold in Marvel Snap. This way you can make sure you get these extra cards. Even if it's reasonably expensive to buy gold for extra whatever to get into that mode, it's very likely to be cheaper than just trying to buy these cards. So that is like the breakdown of the stuff we need to know. Let's get to the cards that are dropping. The 13 cards that are dropping Series 3, and I'll give you my immediate reaction. Null is sort of a whatever. They just gave this card to almost everyone who's playing the game. So getting Null is fine. It's a card that should have been Series 3 a million years ago. It was one of the two cards that when they stopped series drops on a regular schedule, we expected it to drop, and then Null and Darkhawk were the two cards that didn't. You'll note Darkhawk has still not dropped because they can still sell us a million Darkhawks. Zabu is probably the most important card that drops. This card is absolutely incredible. It goes in a ton of meta decks. It creates meta decks with no other high series cards. If you have Doom 2099 or if you have Galacta, you can basically use Zabu to create yourself. Or if you get Wiccan, which is coming in spotlights in that same 3/4 date. So if you get Zabu, you are opening up multiple decks. It is one of the best things that they could possibly drop. Another one of the best things they could possibly drop, my second favorite of the cards that will be free, is MODOK. MODOK gives you access to a discard deck fundamentally immediately. He's best if you have Scorn. He's best if you have Proxima, or he's best if you have whatchamacallit, Bullseye, right? If you don't have those cards, you'll still be fine. You can still play a reasonably effective discard list. It's just a very powerful archetype. Nimrod is a nothing of a card. Great. Next. Ghost Spider is very good. It makes the move deck that has been near the top of the meta cheaper. Nebula is a solid card, just all around good card that is going down. We're happy to see Nebula go down. Silk is a card that doesn't really exist. Silk is better than Nimrod, but not by a lot. You're not sad to see Nimrod, but you're not happy. Spider Ham is, I mean, if you play Iceman, you can play Spider Ham. If you play Spider Ham, you can play Iceman. They're about the same power level. They're sort of whatever. Lady Deathstrike makes another new deck even cheaper. The Mill archetype really does need that card, so that's great. Mobius is the big card. I think that outside of Zabu and MODOK, which are for specific decks, Mobius can easily be the most played of these cards because when the meta wants Mobius, everyone wants Mobius. The meta currently wants Mobius, and thus it's a great card. Havoc has one deck, but again, great deck. We'll take a look at it later. So if you get Havoc, you're happy. Selene and Hercules are absolutely terrible. So of the 13 cards you can get for free, we've got Zabu, MODOK, Ghost Spider, Nebula, Lady Deathstrike, Mobius, and Havoc. Those 7 cards are the ones we really want. Those are the cards you're looking for if you get a free Series 3, or the cards that will help you build decks that are really, really competitive. Dropping to Series 4, we have 11 cards. This is weaker, bluntly, like significantly weaker. Well, let's go through. Loki has been out of the meta. It was just in Spotlights, and I sort of expected it to get a rework to be stronger as it was in Spotlights. Now we know why it didn't, though. It didn't because it's dropping and it's not very good. It was the Scourge of the meta. Speaking of, this is going to be a theme. Blob was the Scourge of the meta. Now it's in fundamentally no decks. Sebastian Shaw is still very, very good in Silver Surfer decks at the very least, so we're happy to see that dropping. Elsa Bloodstone is not in any decks, and they gave her to us for free in December. Ms. Marvel was the Scourge of the meta, much like Elsa, much like Blob, much like Loki, and is now not much. Werewolf was the Scourge of the meta, and now has maybe one deck. Cards that actually matter. We're after Shaw, which is really good in Surfer. We have our next card that mattered. Scar being cheaper is significantly useful for a lot of players. Scar and Cull Obsidian go in the same deck. That deck is very powerful. It's a meta deck. These are the big two that they're dropping, Scar and Cull. We're happy to get Shaw, so that's three. Corvus Glaive is fine. It's in some versions of Hela. It might be good with cards coming later that we'll talk about later this video. But Corvus for now is just going to be a miss. Cannonball is a huge, huge get, so Cannonball makes 4 big hits. Cannonball was the Scourge in the meta, but it's still an absolutely great card. It goes to multiple archetypes and is extremely strong. And then we finish up with the Nihilus, who again was the Scourge in the meta, but doesn't matter. So Shaw, great for Surfer. Cannonball, great for Scream decks and Clog decks. Scar and Cull Obsidian, who go together. Those 4 cards are great. The other 7 are kind of misses. They like to have a reasonable amount of junk in Series 4 because, and they don't announce this, the duplicate spot, the spot that gives you 2,000 tokens if you get a duplicate in Spotlight Caches, weights itself towards Series 4. Before it rolls what card it is, it rolls what series that card is, and there's a 2/3 weight on Series 4. So they like to have some sort of junky stuff in Series 4. That's why there's a Nihilus here. That's why there's Elsa here. That's why there's Loki here, so on and so forth. So just so you know, they're not bad cards, right? They're happy to have them, but like they're not top of the meta cards, and they like to have a bunch of those in Series 4. This way you're still getting new cards, new things to experiment with, but you're not getting the meta for free. That is fundamentally how Marvel Snap works. Sorry if you didn't know that, but that is it. So we get 4 good cards here, and you're fairly likely to, through that duplicate spot, end up with most of these cards if you open enough spotlights over enough time. Before we get to the actual decks and individual card breakdowns, I'm going to ask you to please hit that sub button, like, and comment if you're willing. The bottom right of the screen, you'll see a little YouTube button. If you hit it, you're subbed. We bring you more Marvel Snap content than anyone. This coming week, we'll have, I believe, 8 videos, maybe 9. We do a video every day, and then some days we do 2 videos. We get top of the meta decks before anyone else. We cover Marvel Snap like no one. So if you're interested in the best Marvel Snap coverage, please hit that sub button. A like and a comment help too. We're also giving away a season pass this week, our last Sam Wilson Captain America, who certain prominent creators think is the best card in the game. We're giving away our last Sam Wilson this week. So all you have to do is hit that sub, hit that like, and then later this video, leave a comment. If you leave that comment, you are entered to win Sam Wilson. We are also giving away, we're announcing winners, if you're a longtime viewer, for 4 different Sam Wilsons later this video, so stay tuned. All right, so let's do an analysis for each dropping card along with the deck. So Null is a very good card to own. If you are a lower collection level player, a newer player, you are very happy to own Null. However, you probably already own a Null variant. You can still open the base Null. Owning the variant does not mean you own the card. It means you can play the card, but you don't own the card, i.e. you won't see extra variants for it, so on, until you have the base card. So Null getting to Series 3 is big in that, like, now you'll see variants if you want. Null has a lot of really cool variants. I know a lot of people like Destroy, and this opens up that archetype. It's relatively cheap now. In fact, there are only 2 real cards that Null gets played with that are high series, X-23, which is Series 4, and Nico, which is Series 5. So as you make your way through Series 3, you should be able to build a Destroy deck. Null is also an insanely old card. That is 12/7/22. It came out almost over 2 years ago at this point. Excuse me, over 2 years ago at this point. So this is a card that is well beyond time to give to everybody. So I'm finally happy they made that decision, even if it's a little bit lame that they just gave it to us last week. There are people who will join later than that, like few weeks ago that Null was given, and those people will be happy to find this card as part of their Series 3 journey. A little bit weak right now, but not terrible. This is the classic Destroy deck. This is the version that everyone plays. I personally run Shang-Chi over Arnim Zola when I play this deck for missions. This is a amazing beginner's deck. If you ever play Infinite Conquest, you're going to see a ton of this. It can beat anything. It's just really, really predictable if you know what it does. It has a lot of locations. Like, it's a good deck. This is a good deck. It's a tier 2/3 deck, but it is a good deck. And again, null is an absolute requirement for it. It is insanely, insanely big in this list. Next up, we have Zabu. Zabu released 1/7/23. Uh, it was the season pass card when it released as a 3/2 that gave all fours -2 cost. It was completely broken at that, arguably the best card in the history of Marvel Snap. It was then nerfed to a 2/2 ongoing that gave all fours -1. Uh, and then it was still arguably the best card in the game for like a year. Then they made it a 2/2 on reveal, and it was absolutely terrible. And then we finally got this 1/2 where it only affects cards in deck, not in hand, and now it's in a bajillion decks. It's again one of the best cards in Marvel Snap. I'm very, very happy that even if this is a really old card, even if this was supposed to drop the same time as Null, that this is such a strong card that they are giving to us for free finally. This goes with a ton of stuff. It goes with Galactus, Shang-Chi, Doom 29, Skardex, Wiccan. It's one of the most played cards in the game, and now even more people will be able to get it. This is a must-have card. If you don't own Zabu and you have a free Series 3 coming in March, please, please, please immediately grab this card. This is just one example of like 50 different Zabu decks. This one was created by Pluto. I believe Cam Best is playing something very, very similar to this right now, near the top of the Infinite Leaderboard. This one has an insane win rate. I just wanted to show one of the many, many things you can do with Zabu. There are, again, like a million different things you can do with this damn card, but this one is just saying, I want to run 4/4 drops. That should be untenable because you can only play a 4 on 4, a 4 on 5, a 4 on 6, and then you're like screwed, right? Well, if you get Zabu, you can play a 4 on 3. Or on turn 6, you can play 2/4s, etc., etc. Zabu is absolutely, absolutely incredible for this type of deck and so many others. One of the very best and most important cards in Marvel Snap. Again, I cannot overstate how much you should get Zabu. Next up is MODOK, who was released 2/7/23, the season pass card the month after Zabu, and let me just say, at the time, it was not good in Paled in comparison. It eventually does find its home, and now it has two homes. It has the Bullseye Dokken deck, which we're going to take a look at, and has the Proxima Scorn deck. You've probably seen that deck. That's the Apocalypse Dracula deck. You absolutely need MODOK for it. You can play that deck with just MODOK. You won't need any other high series cards. Proxima and Scorn are great for it, but not required, and you have a deck that's, I don't know, in the same vicinity of quality as Destroy. If you have Proxima and Scorn, now all of a sudden you have a great deck. If you have Bullseye and Dokken, all of a sudden you have access again to a great deck just because they have MODOK. MODOK going down is huge. It is well, well beyond time that we make this archetype cheaper. This is the current version of the list. This is Alexander Kochia's deck. You probably know Alex Kochia. He's one of the biggest Marvel Snap YouTubers. This is like the exact Marvel Alexander Kochia list that he created like day one of Bullseye. It has been a meta list for ages. It's great. It is not the cheapest thing in the world, right? But MODOK is an absolute requirement. So if MODOK, Bullseye, Dokken, Frigga, Scorn, and Meek, you can do without Scorn and Meek just fine. You probably want Frigga though. So this is a list that got cheaper. That is great because MODOK is in it. We love to see it. Then we have Nimrod, who was released 3/7/23. Once again, the season pass card the month after MODOK. We're downgrading a lot of season pass cards. This one was never really meta. It was good in Galactus for a little while, but it releases a 5/5. It had to be buffed to a 5/6 and was never very good. It's also worth noting if you're looking to open for I forgot the name of the card. The card that comes out next week. This card coming out Tuesday, Diamondback. There we go. Nimrod and Phoenix Force will be out in spotlights at the same time as that card. So Nimrod is series dropping to free. So be careful opening if you want to open for Diamondback, and that will push Diamondback down in the rankings as far as what I think you should open for a fair amount. This is not a meta card and almost never was. It can go with Phoenix Force or Nico, but it's not really requiring anything. Like this is a tier like not even close to meta card. This is what a deck with it looks like. Gutenschad has played this into the top 1,000 a few times. He is a destroy main. He really, really does enjoy this list. But this is a list that's super disruptible, right? Like Nimrod being a 5 makes it a very, very hard, play, a very, very big ask. Good card, um, but it's never really had a like serious home in Marvel Snap. Next up, we've got Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider was the season pass card of June of 23. Again, all the early season pass cards that were in Series 4 seem to be being dropped. This is was released as a 2/3 and then was moved to a 1/2, and it's been pretty good since it's been a 1/2, but it didn't become a meta card until a year later, September of 24, when they released Aranya Man and Web, and since then, Bounce has been one of the better decks in the game. Aranya and Madam Web in, I want to say, April, are in a spotlight week together. So if you get a free Ghost Spider, you can get Aranya and Madam Web a month later. And then guess what? All of a sudden, you have a full bounce deck. Everything else in that deck that's important is Series 3, which is really, really great. So Ghost Spider going down is a bigger deal than it seems like immediately. Yes, it's one deck, but it's one deck that people have access to if they spend their spotlights. And this is the main version of the deck that you will be playing if you're playing this card. You get Madam Web, you get it on, you have Ghost Spider. You have the required cards. Nico's not required. Frigga's semi-required, I guess. Frigga's really, really good, y'all. Very underrated card. And Toxin can just be Falcon without you losing too much. So this is a very cheap list that they are fundamentally making significantly cheaper. I cannot overexpress that I think that this Ghost Spider is a pretty big deal. Nebula is a less big deal. She actually came out the month before Ghost Spider, as you guessed it, the season pass card, 5/7/23. She was never touched. She's one of the best designed cards ever. We thought she was going to be too strong, but right around when she came out, they gave everyone a Kitty Pride for free, and that always sort of kept her in check. Um, she goes with lockdown cards like War Machine and Legion, along with Rocket and Groot. And the reason we're doing the like goes with stuff is so you can tell how much you should target a card, right? If you have War Machine Legion decks and you love playing them, then Nebula is a really, really good grab for you. So this is our friend Fafnir Newman's War Machine list. It is fundamentally a Doom 2099 Scream list, and Nebula is really solid here, right? Because if you're playing one card a turn, you can force the opponent to try and play on Nebula. If you put Rocket and Groot on Nebula, you get 2 power either which way. You can play this to force people to play cards in certain spots, which is really good with cards like Craven and Polaris and so on and so forth. Nebula is just a good card. It's just, is it required for anything? Absolutely not. Is it good? Yeah, I think it's a pretty good a pretty good card. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like Nebula. I think Nebula is very well designed. This is like the first card we've talked about, by the way, that hasn't been touched at all by OTA. Then we have Silk, another un OTA touch card. This was released 6/7/23. I remember when this card came out, everyone thought it was going to be incredible, and then it did nothing until August. And then in August, it was in a deck called Silky Smooth that Lambie made. Lambie is one of the best players ever in the game. He's moved on to play largely parallel, but he created this deck called Silky Smooth, where Silk was utterly insane for quite a while. This goes with cards like Elsa, Angela, and Thena, but honestly, it hasn't had a meta home in a very long time. The real reason you play it is it's a very easy way to trigger Miles Morales, but they just released Sam Wilson Captain America, who's sort of the same thing. So, I don't know. This was the style of deck it would end up played in. Outside of Silky Smooth, it was played in this Black Bolt stature list that used to have Darkhawk. Frank Puddle created a version that runs that's basically just saying I run tempo stuff, right? This list got significantly cheaper, right? You can get Silk and Zabu for free now. You are going to want Jeff if you play this list, but I think everything else here is Series 3, and a lot of people own Jeff because Jeff is one of the most popular cards in the history of the game. So this could be an all Series 3 thing that you get with Silk that can compete. Is this amazing? No. Is this a must-have card or deck? Please, no. But this is a deck you're fairly reasonably okay playing. Silks, I'm not sad to see it go down a level, but it's not like, oh my gosh. All right, Spider Ham is card release 5/7/23. This was immediately a Series 4 card. It was nerfed from hitting the highest cost card in hand, at which point it was OP. It would always hit the highest cost card in your opponent's hand previously, which just made it crazy. It was nerfed. It was like one of the best cards of the game, and it was nerfed. It's a fine card. It's Iceman. It's sometimes better than Iceman. It's sometimes worse than Iceman. It's basically Iceman. It's whatever. Our friend Buddy ran this in a deck with Iceman. It's sort of an old school deck. There was a point where Leader with Leech was an insane play, like way back in at the end of 2022. Um, that's sort of what Buddy's going for, well, with Pixie to make it cheaper. I don't know. It's a cute idea. I just don't think I want to play Spider Ham anywhere right now, even if this kind of thing is cute. Next up, we have Lady Deathstrike, and Lady Deathstrike is anything but cute. This is a real card. She was really bad when she released in August of 23. People thought she might be decent, but she was really hard to use. She had to be buffed a lot to be worth anything. Eventually, they just made her a 5/7 and said she kills 3 or less. Let's move on, which is very good. She only really has one home, though. It's Mill with Gladiator and Fenris. It's this style of list. This is, however, one of the better lists in Marvel Snap right now. This is along with Zabu and MODOK, the next card that has a real tier 1 deck. This is a real tier 1 deck. There's metas it's slightly better and worsen, but this is legit, and getting Lady Deathstrike for free really, really brings down the cost of this list. You're going to need Misery and Gladiator here, and Fenris, right? But you don't need Iron Patriot and ZMO. You can do perfectly fine running like a Shadow King and Juggernaut in those spots. So this list is not super expensive and it is very strong. This one was created originally by by Fudge, I believe, Elephant Fudge, and then modified. This version is modified by Crimeafoot. This is the Crimeafoot version. So if you're interested in who created this one. Mobius is, again, this is the fourth of the really, really, really big drops. I think it's very important that they make tech cards more affordable, and thus I'm extremely disappointed that Red Guardian is not being dropped to Series 4 because Red Guardian's the best tech card in the game. Mobius has metas where he's all but required. He was straight to Series 4, and he was immediately overpowered in the Land of Loki, where he was a 2/3 that basically shut off a ton of decks. He was made on reveal as a 2/3 at first, which was terrible and caused a controversy because Second Dinner implied that they thought they might have to make this change when they released him, and then they made him a 3/3, and he's been basically fine since. Once in a while, he's one of the very best cards in the game. A fair amount of the time, he's utterly unplayable. It depends what the meta is, but having access to him does change the game. It makes like negative significantly worse that everyone will have this card. Stuff like that is really important. Okay, this is just a good example of a Mobius deck. Anything you can afford to just have an extra 3-drop on, right? If you just get sick of losing to certain things and you can afford to run a 3-drop like Arishem runs him, you just happily run Mobius and you say, okay, that matchup is taken care of if I draw that card. Or it's harder for that matchup to beat me if they draw that card. He doesn't do anything against cards like Wiccan, but he is otherwise very strong in the meta. This version is a slightly altered version of the MSL Chamo list, where he's ranked like number 3, playing largely Wiccan lists right now. This is a great list. It's a genuinely great list. Havoc likewise has only one list in Marvel Snap, but Havoc's list is one of my personal favorites. Havoc came out in 1219 and was not good forever. People would occasionally pretend he was good, but he was not. He does have a meta deck that needs both Agent Venom and Thena, but that deck is legit. This is that list. You don't need Nico for it. You do need Agent Venom and Thena. You can do without Cassandra. Um, you can do without Red Guardian. You can do without US Agent. You could Sage is iffier. But oh, actually, excuse me. This probably shouldn't run Iron Man. There's versions that run Iron Man. I don't think that's it. Havoc is significantly better than Iron Man in this list. But whatever. This is that type of list. It is quite good. If you want to play it, you do need Havoc, but you do also need some other high series stuff. So him dropping is nice, but like because he's played in a deck with so much other high cost stuff, I don't know. I'm a little bit less sold. All right, next up we got the Series 3 Selene. Um, Selene is terrible. It's my estimation one of the 2 or 3 worst cards in Marvel Snap. She was released the day after Christmas of 2023. She was a 1 -3 and released directly to Series 4. She has always been kind of bad, and I don't think she's ever going to be good unless they edit her. There was a fake leaked OTA that made her completely insane. If that happens Thursday, well, make sure you check it out, and we'll cover that then. But for now, it wasn't a fake leaked OTA. It was a they considered changing her to make her um always give steal power from the lowest cost card in both you and your opponent's hand, which would have made her absurd. So I don't know. I don't know if that ever happens. We'll revisit Celine, but for the time being, she's only ever had a home in the Style of Galactus list, where you're trying to hit Goblin and Hobgoblin. If you can make them an extra -3, it's nice. I don't know. Do you really care to do that? Is that worth the extra effort? Nope. Hercules is likewise terrible. He was the released in 1924. I believe he is the only card released in 2024 that is actually going to be free. So all the rest of 2024 is still Series 4 or 5, which is wild. Um, he released as a 4/6, at which point he was completely unplayable, and now he's a 3/5 and he's basically unplayable. Move decks don't run it, largely because it can still affect opponents' move cards, and because not being able to have any control over where your cards move is sort of a problem as you're trying to play multiple cards in a turn. Um, I don't know. This is the last person who played it at a reasonably high level. You'll note that this deck is from October of 2024. It is not a card that often sees play. It is okay if you want to just make a stupid Human Torch and drop Tribunal. That's his use. If you want to just play all the move cards and try and get Torch going, and then you want to spend a turn dropping a Tribunal with your like 100 million power Human Torch, have frickin' fun. That is exactly what Hercules does. You'll win some games that way. Outside of that, this card is more trouble than it's worth. I think he pretty badly needs a rework. Hey, I'll be streaming later today. About 1 p.m. Eastern, I should be streaming a streamathon. We're going to have massive giveaways. I tell you what they are, but we're still working on the graphic. But we're going to do hundreds of dollars of giveaways on the streamathon on our Twitch at twitch.tv/pulseglazer. Please stop by. All right. What card are you most excited for? So, is our season pass question. If you want to enter to win a free Sam Wilson, answer that in the comments. What card that's dropping in either Series 3 or Series 4 are you most excited for? The winners of season passes, and if you have the season pass, I know it's late in the season, I will happily give you a gold pass instead. Please reach out. We're going to go DJ Mikey Hijinks, Rise of Potato Nation, Matuset, like Massachusetts, I believe, Matuset 611, and Goal Leader 7100. Congrats on your free season passes or gold passes, as the case may be. If you're interested again, please don't forget to check out that stream later today. It is Sunday as I'm posting this, so twitch.tv/PulseGlazer if you want to win hundreds of dollars in free Marvel Snap prizes. All right, to Series 4 is Loki. Loki is a 2/2. He released on 9/26/23. He was the season pass at the time. Everyone thought he was going to be terrible as a 3/5 that basically swapped your hand with um, your opponent's a hand from your opponent's deck at -1 cost. At which point he was completely freaking insane. He was 3/5, then 4/5, then he stopped working with Quinjet. Eventually, he was a 3/5 that had this ability but drew a card and was still broken. And then they finally made him a 2/2, and he's kind of bad as a 2/2. He's I don't know. I fully expected him to get a rework when he was in Spotlights last week. This week, still technically, whatever. When he was in Spotlights, I fully expected him to get a rework. He did not. Uh, we now know the reason is that they're just going to drop him. I think, and at this point, let him sort of fade into obscurity. If that's the case, fine. Here is our friend I Am Frostman's Loki, which I think is a pretty damn good list. It's about as good as Loki gets. Loki has some synergy with Adam Warlock. Adam, and the rest of this list is just saying if I've got Hawkeye, Hydra Bob, Adam Warlock, I'm likely to draw. That helps me with my Iron Patriot lane, so on. We're just trying to get some cheap stuff and take advantage of it when we have cards like Galactic Captain Marvel. This list is pretty cool. A lot of people have been having success with it. Props to Frostman for coming up with it. I've been hearing good things. Um, my real problem here is I don't think I actually give a shit about Loki in it. All right. Blob was released 12/12/23. He was the best card in the game. He used to just eat your whole deck basically and be 10 million power. I don't know. That was a lot. He was a lot. He was nerfed and then still great for ages, and then he was nerfed again down to his current like 13 power. Um, he's not really played anymore, although he does have this deck. This Thanos Arishem list was for quite a while the best deck for rank 90 to 99 in Marvel Snap. It's a good card. I don't know. Like you're fine if you want to. Okay, he's a good card in Arishem. If you're playing Arishem, there's probably better things to be doing. But if you happen to get him as a Series 4 card and you have Arishem, you'll throw him in as you build your collection. That's what Blob is right now. Then we have Sebastian Shaw. He was the season pass card on 12/5/23. Again, please note tons of season pass cards all around are dropping. This is a 3/4. That gets +2 extra power whenever it gets permanent power. It really only goes in Surfer, where it's absolutely amazing with Galacta. This is a good example of that type of deck. This was round two's deck that he reached rank 2 with on the Infinite Leaderboard. It's a very, very good list. You don't need any of the high series stuff outside of Shaw to play this, outside of Shaw, Galacta to play the list, and Shaw gets cheaper, so Surfer becomes a more affordable list. Really good. Again, this list gets significantly cheaper, right? We've got Mobius, that's a Series 4 card in it. We've got Phastos as a recent Series 4 card in it. Sorry, Mobius, that'll be a Series 3 card in it. Phastos, that's a Series 4 card in it. Um, and then we've got, that's it, right? Like Red Guardian, Shaw, Galacta. So if you bought the season pass of Galacta, you'll have Shaw will be Series 4, and you'll only really want Red Guardian. You could always run Rogue in that spot or something else. So this is looking pretty damn good. Then we have Elsa, 3/4, released 10/4/23. This was incredible. It was a 2/2 that gave +3, another card that had an argument as the best card in the history of the game, along with Loki and Zabu, as like these could all be the best. This was nerfed eventually to this, which is fine. It was a 3/3 and now it's a 3/4. Um, it was, however, given to everyone as a login reward over the most recent holiday break, over like the Christmas season, right? I think on either December 25th or 26th. So I don't know. Most people have this still. This is nice to get for free, especially because people again start the game after that. Um, this is okay with Mockingbird Sasquatch sticks. I want to say it's okay with Thena and Angela, but it's just not anymore. This is the type of deck it's good in. This is our friend Cougar's deck. He's played this version and another version of it. Basically, if you can fill up a bunch of lanes on turn 5 with Mysterios, If you go Elsa into Gwenpool and to fill some lanes with Mysterios, they get reasonably big. You get a cheap Akbar Sasquatch, you put out a bunch of power, you win the game. It's a cool list. Do you need Elsa? Yeah, I guess. But you probably have her for free, right? Hmm. Then we have Ms. Marvel. She was again a season pass card, like Ms. Marvel, like Shaw, like Loki. However, she was another sorry, and she was another broken one. She was a 5/5 where you only needed one card in another lane to make her a 5/15. She's been bad. I don't know what else to say. She was nerfed and has been power crept away. Even when she was good, she was largely good because that was a strange time in the game when a lot of the other scalers were gone, so her power just seemed like a lot. Um, this is a cool deck that runs her. Is it great? No, but it's a really cool combo deck. So if you're the type of person that likes combos, we covered this last week in a video if you're interested, where you want to get you need magic, but you want to get Ms. Marvel in a lane, then you want to play Onslaught, and then you want to play Mystique on Onslaught, and then you get like insane lanes because it starts exponential growth, and that's really cool, right? I don't know. You need Ms. Marvel for this list, but you don't need Ms. Marvel for anything else. Then we have the Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night was again the scourge of the meta, but not a season pass card finally. This was released on Halloween of 23, which was very thematic and cool. This was the best card in the game as a 3/3 for quite a while. It was really great with Loki and Bounce, but they nerfed it to a 4/4, and then slowly but surely it disappeared. It's good now, but not great, and it is very hard to use. This is one of the highest skill cap cards in the game. Any sort of junk in the meta, any sort of bad locations completely kills the werewolf deck. It is not great. The best deck with it right now is our friend Burr's deck. Burr's is playing Wereclog. This is what that list looks like. Um, it's really good. I don't know what else to say. It is a very, very strong list. Uh, but like Werewolf is sort of a backup plan for it. You're sort of trying to win through clogging them up and then getting like cheap Iron Patriot stuff and so on. And then Werewolf is just decent power as a like moves and makes it harder to predict and makes you able to win extra cubes. But hey, Werewolf cheaper is not something I'm gonna like scoff at. Scar goes to Series 4. This is the only meta card we're going to talk about, but we've talked about so far, that is going down to Series 4. 610, 1 to 24 season pass. Again, this is meta, and you want Call Obsidian Inserter. This one is also coming in Spotlights in April, so if you can wait that long, you can get it in Spotlights. It won't matter that it's cheaper for that, but hey, it's not bad either. And actually, I believe comes in Spotlights with Call Obsidian, so you're going to get two Series 4 cards there, but at least they go together. This is the baseline version of that list. It has gotten more expensive because it now wants Sam Wilson because Sam Wilson makes Call Obsidian significantly better and more consistent. But that's it. This is the baseline list. We've all seen it. This is super strong and super consistent, and it's still one of the highest win rate decks in Marvel Snap. Black Knight was released 10/17/23. He was completely terrible. As the Shard used to be able to get Shang-Chi and would basically immediately always be Shang-Chi or Shadow King. Well, they made it eventually that it couldn't be Shanged or Shadow King, at which point it was like one of the best cards for a short while. Then they got rid of the Shadow King restriction, and now it's fine. It's cheapish. It doesn't really need anything. The last person that even messed with it is our friend Roram, who created this deck called Black Hand, which is basically saying I can give my Shard +2 power. Valentina +2 power means that sorry, with Victoria Hand. Valentina +2 power means that I'm not losing anything when I play that card. It's fine. Is it good? Yeah. Is it like anything worth going any way for? No. More people having Black Knight isn't bad. It's a card that's fun and worth messing around with. Then we have Corvus going to Series 4. This released 2/20/24. This was again the scourge of the meta in Hela decks and Thanos decks for a couple months, but then they nerfed both Hela and Thanos, and Corvus fundamentally disappeared. It's in one current version of Hela, and it might be good with the upcoming card Khonshu. Khonshu is a 6, I want to say 4, that becomes a 6/7 that then becomes a 6/12 each time it's discarded. So that could be really cool with Corvus. I don't know for sure, but that does seem like it could be really cool for Corvus. So like as Corvus lets you play that a turn early and gives you a better chance of discarding that card an extra time. I think that that's going to make this one a really big deal down the line, but for now I'm not in love. Outside, unless you want to play the Danish Hela list, which is basically this. Corvus is the key card in this. You really want a Corvus even if you have Hela in hand here, because you're running cards like Ghost Rider and Odin to try and get it back for big surprises and big cubes. Danish has been around the top like 50 and sometimes in the top 10 with this list for a million seasons, and it still works really, really great. Corvus is again the key card, and this is otherwise a very, very cheap list. Legion and Blink and Gore being the other high series cards here. Supergiant is gone now. It's Black Cat in that list now. Call Obsidian is the other big card that's dropped. Cull is in a ton of stuff. If you got Sam Wilson, Captain America, you should be very happy this Cull is coming. Although, again, it is in Spotlight, so the immediate impact is lessened because you could just get it in Scar and Spotlights, which means it doesn't matter if it's Series 5 or 4, you get it either way. This is released 2/13/24. It was meta in Thanos decks, but it disappeared until Scar Surtur decks showed up, and now it's back. This again now has more homes, which we're going to take a look at momentarily. This is an important card to own, I feel like. This is one of the like all around good cards that we are happy to have. The other deck it runs in is this sort of Scream list. This is what Browdet, if you're aware of Browdet, a big Marvel Snap streamer who's also Marvel Snap Bugle on Twitter, plays right now. And Cull Obsidian's a requirement, and thus the deck has gotten cheaper. This is, however, not a cheap deck, despite that it has gotten cheaper. You need Scream, you need Sam, which means you're going to have to spend some cash, and you need Surtur. Although, if you buy season passes, you have Surtur and you have Sam, you will get Cull cheaper, and then you can get Scream. You do not need Ares. Crossbones is completely fine there. But this is a very good list. I don't know what else to say. It's a really good list, and Cull Obsidian's in it. Cull Obsidian's in the Scar list. Cull going down and getting cheaper is a big deal. We're almost done as we get to Cannonball, who is a 5/8, released 3/19/24. He was the best card or one of the best cards in the game when played with Professor X, but they changed Professor X to break up that play pattern. He's still great in both Clock and Scream decks, and he's a must-play card. This is the standard ass Scream deck. This is like the baseline Scream deck that he goes in. This is a really, really solidly cheap list. It has gotten a little more expensive because it just sort of wants to run the best twos, and now Sam Wilson and Iron Patriot are the best twos that it can run besides Scream. So you only really need Scream and Cannonball for this. You don't need Rock and Groot. You don't need Iron Patriot. You don't need Sam. They're good cards here, but Scream and Cannonball make the deck work, and thus, if you have them, you can play this list. Finally, we have Annihilus, was released 11/22/23. This was a very powerful card, and again, the Scourge of the meta. It seems like they're releasing a lot of old meta cards that a lot of older players will own, but a lot of newer players will get to experiment with. He's good, but not worth going away for. He doesn't need high series stuff, although you may want Cersei and Deathstrike. The most recent example of him succeeding has been this mill list, where someone basically replaced a little death package in mill with an Annihilus Sentry Hood package. Pretty cool stuff from Andre Var, but he doesn't, again, have major homes right now, despite him being a very cool card. All right, so I'm of two minds about this. I really, really like the cards they dropped to Series 3. I think they did an amazing job choosing cards that dropped to Series 3, but I'm genuinely disappointed in the cards they dropped to Series 4. There are still more Series 5 cards than there were last drop because so many cards have come out since the last drop. We've had, I want to say, like 11 or 12 cards come into Series 5 since the last time they dropped cards. So Series 5 continues to grow, and I think they need to do a better job with Series 5 in particular, especially dropping more cards that people actually want. The Series 3 change of 13 free cards is absolutely incredible. Hitting on 7 of those and then having some like decent experimentation stuff happen with those others is going to be a big deal and is going to really help players, particularly newer players. I do think they could do better for us as far as Series 5 goes, and I'm looking forward to further changes coming out from that. And yes, as always, I have said that to Second Dinner directly. They are well aware that I think that they did a great job with the Series 4 to 3 stuff, but they absolutely are still making a huge mistake in holding too much stuff in Series 5 and thus limiting players and frustrating players. If you're a newer player, you should be thrilled. If you are a more embedded player, I think that this is a little bit less of a great deal for you. Hopefully, the new change comes sooner than later and really does make this better. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. Thank you to Ocularis, the patron of the month, Abigail Heeson, Manager Burnout, Irregardless, LAB Inc., I Am Frostman, Hote Navarrete, Thinking Poker, Prime Ryan, Ryan Burke, Ryan Wood, Caretixley, Koirei, Kazushi, Archangel 3K, Black Dahlia, Perfus, The Goodseer, Hallowed, Nightmare, Only Fox, Synth, Bat Nick, Dirty Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, Cables, Ginger Prime, Philip Brakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, The Beza, Black Jeebus 23, XRC, and Skippy G, Jessica Gamble, Sloosh Death, The Kinger Bros, Brooke, The Great Kazoo, Werewolf, Kevziota, Lunacris, Clam, Colonel Forbin, Rob Silverman, M. Holland, David G. Wingfield, Steven, Brian Kaufman, Tristan Ace Martin, Jason B., Mr. Craig Starry, Matt V., Ren Wrench, Corwin, John Q, and Jimmy McHugh. You stout Ace Age, one big man. Milkman for reals, Cactus Jack, what's up, Cactus? BG, Quid Pro Joe, Snap to Scissors Joe, Mod Supreme Models, The Green Goblin, Unibot, Flan56, The Fuzzy Down, Spectrumix, Woot, Absolute Shannon, Matt H, DJ Mikey Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Nick the Greek Geek, Zadrex, The King of Canada, Denman Falcon, Thor Newman, Jonesy, Two Ties, The Right Lauren Evans, The Pirate King Tucker, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for, oh, wrong slide. Check out our Patreon, friends. Patreon.com/snapjudgments. You can get your name read out too. And then I'll see everyone tomorrow for another Snap Take. I've got a backlog of decks for you, so get frickin' ready. See you then. Peace.